Hey guys, welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of the House of Gouldians. I'm really excited about this new season up ahead. You can see that the environment's a little bit different. We moved bird rooms, so we're in a much sort of more spacious environment. I can use my studio lighting, and generally we can do a lot more because we have a lot more space. So yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of work around specific mutations and that kind of thing this year. Every year I kind of think, well, how can we improve the show? How can we sort of make it more beneficial to you as the keepers from around the world? So what we're going to do is we're going to twice a month look at a particular mutation or the standard, whichever. And this particular episode I thought we would focus on the black-headed purple-breasted greenbacks. Now, when I say we're going to deep dive into this particular variation of the Gouldian finch, what do I mean by that? So we're going to look at the Gouldian Online World Show class winner for the respective mutation when we talk about it. So in this case, the black-headed purple-breasted greenback. We're going to look at the judge's comments, and I will then pause the video and highlight what the judge is referring to, because sometimes you see the comment but you don't actually spot what the judge is talking about. Okay, so I figured that would be a really good way for the guys that are wanting to improve their quality to learn about what to look for and what the judge actually means by the comments that they make. Alright, so that's part of the episode today. Then we're going to discuss the genetics around that particular variation of the Gouldian. So we'll talk about, how you would make that bird. Typically, is it a recessive mutation when we get onto the mutation side of it? Is it sex-linked? All that kind of stuff. So that you understand how to replicate the bird in question should you want to breed that variation in your bird room. Less applicable, obviously, to the classics, but we'll still discuss, whether a gene is dominant, all that kind of stuff. And what the color area should look like on a classic and all that kind of thing. So there's quite a bit that we can chat about, even though it's a classic bird, the first one, which is class 1 of that. We'll talk about the naming conventions and all that. So it's a full sort of encompassment of each variation on the bird that we're hoping to achieve this year. Okay, so that's kind of the outline for today's episode on what we're going to be doing. On alternative weeks, because I don't want you guys getting bored, we're then going to look for things like the breeder features, where we chat to someone from elsewhere in the world and what it's like keeping Gouldians in their part of the world, what mutations they're working with, all that kind of stuff. So in other words, more a sort of interest segment opposed to necessarily an educational segment. Or what we'll do is we will discuss the other aspects. So, now that we're getting to Season 3, there's a lot of episodes and a lot of information that we've covered over the years. And some of the guys, they don't want to necessarily go all the way back to Episode 1 to pick up on all that information. So we'll recap on some of the stuff. It'll be a reminder for some of you that have been watching from day one. One thing that I do want to do is discuss sort of different seed mixes and that kind of thing. So I will ask a couple of the contacts from around the world, their particular percentages of seed and that kind of thing. We'll talk about what I'm doing locally, so that you guys can get a good balanced view of different aspects of the bird. So that's what we're going to alternate the sort of or plus monthly topic of the different mutations. And that way I think we're covering a good broad sort of perspective, and we should cover everything over the course of the season. Now, before we move on to that, we're still busy with our majestic bloodline. Remember, we said that the majestic bloodline, which is we're talking about today, is the black-headed purple-breasted. So I'll show you my pairs on that front, and we name them after the French monarchs. So if I refer to them as the French line, it's the black-headed purple-breast that we're referring to. And so we're going to still catch up on all that. So you'll still be able to keep up with what's happening with my pairs and how my breeding is going. And part of that sort of deep dive into it is discussing why I paired the way I did to try and improve my quality, with the hopes that maybe one day we can do well on the World Show as well. As it happened this year, my birds weren't on the show because I was one of the judges in 2023. But Next year it might be somebody else's turn to judge the SA birds, and then I can compete or whatever the case might be. But regardless, I want to improve my quality even for our own shows locally as well. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's get cracking. Courtesy of the Gouldian Online World Show, I'll show you the class winner for class 1. So this bird was bred by Dave McDivitt from the British Gouldian Finch Club. It was a superb bird, and the judges' comments were as follows: very good format, model and condition, very good body colour, very good head, breast and tail markings. You then ask, well, why didn't it win the show? The only things that I can see is that the wings aren't quite as neat against the body as they should be, and there's very slight amount of obesity around the vent. So yeah, that's the winning bird that we're aiming for. Let's move on to some of our own birds and have a look at where we're at. We have a long way to go when you compare it to this guy. So well done to Dave, and let's move on to our own pairings. Right, so our first pair is Louis and Isabella. You can see that they're not nearly as big as the British birds are. Obviously this isn't zoomed in as close as that bird was, but they are definitely smaller, and the head is a lot smaller in comparison. We do have a long way to go in South Africa in terms of the head quality. We need our heads to be a lot more broad and rounded, and the hope is to do that over time. The Spanish bird, they took 20 years to get to where they are now. So it can be done with perseverance. Color wise, they've got nice strong coloring. They're a bit scruffy at the moment because they are on a clutch of eggs. I disturbed them when I put the camera in to film them. Beak wise, I'm hoping to breed smaller beaks, bigger heads, broader heads, but from these two we're going for size and overall broadness of body, and then yeah, hopefully we can develop it over time. Right, so our second pairing is Philip and Marie. Now you'll see straight away that she's a much bigger bird than him. He in reality is not actually a small bird, but she is just that much bigger in general. The hope is to get her size and sort of robustness with his strong coloration and small beak or beak proportion versus the head. Like I said with the previous pair, we do have a long way to go in terms of the quality of our head in South Africa, but we also don't want it to be out of proportion, so we need the body size to also be there, and the fullness of breast. Yeah, so that's basically this pairing and the reason behind it. And I'm looking forward to their offspring. They have built a nest already, but there's no eggs yet in the box, so they're a little bit behind our first pairing in terms of the breeding season, but you'll see that she is sort of got that look about her around her rear end that tells me she's going to lay shortly. So probably later today she'll lay her first egg. So yeah, that's this pairing. The purpose of showing you the class winner for the mutation is so that you can see what we're working towards. From episode 1, I said that this was a journey that we were taking to develop a bloodline, and part of that is improving and having a goal towards that we're working towards. So you can see the quality of the British birds versus the size and shape of the South African birds, and we've got a long way to go, and I'm the first to put my hand up and admit that. So yeah, basically season 1 we had sort of really the wrong head shape, whereas now we're starting to get that roundness of the head over the top, but we still need it to be a lot broader. That's the biggest problem that we're having at the moment, and we need to make our beaks a little bit smaller so that the head versus beak proportions are correct. We also want a more robust bird and a bigger bird as well. So those are all sort of goals that we're working on at the moment. Colour wise, our birds are great, we're doing fine, we're well on standard in terms of internationally. We've got rump markings, we've got the line going around the eyes is there. We've got all that kind of thing going for us. The strength of colour is there, evenness of colour is there. So it's really just the types, aspects that we really need to focus on and work on a lot more. And that's what we're going to be doing as you sort of continue to watch season after season. You will notice that difference over time. It took the Spanish birds, as I mentioned earlier, well, the Spanish breeders 20 years to get to where they are now. Final sort of aspect of today's episode, I wanted to chat to you about joining a club, as I really do feel strongly about the importance of this. Being part of a club today. There's many people in South Africa that are keeping Gouldian finches, but for whatever reason, they're not yet part of a club. Now, in 2013, when I first got involved in the Gouldian finches, I've been keeping various species of birds basically all my life. I started with lovebirds, I think, when I was in primary school, and then I worked my way through various species and that kind of thing. But what I found as a sort of a lay person getting into finch keeping, Gouldian finch keeping in particular, is that there was a lot of challenges in terms of getting the right information. Now, I'm not knocking WhatsApp groups. I'm on some of those WhatsApp groups. They're great in terms of making that initial contact, finding the odd bird to start off with, and sort of getting involved in the greater community. And you're probably watching this video through a link that was posted on that particular platform. So they've got their benefit. But here's my concern why I'm saying it's better to be part of a club. I was losing probably, well, I'll put it this way, I was losing more birds than I was breeding in a season before I got involved in a club. When I joined the club, I was then, when I had a problem, let's say a mite problem, I was now starting to get the right advice by people that have had years and years worth of experience in Gouldian finch keeping specifically. Not general bird keeping, but Gouldian finch keeping specifically. And as a result, a stupid little thing like, for example, overdosing the bird when there's a particular problem now went away. I learned very quickly what not to give the birds that perhaps is fine for other species of birds. And I got that information because I was now starting to talk to the right people. Now, that's not to say that the right people aren't on social media. Problem is that how do you discern who to listen to? So, there's 10 guys that respond. One of them might be an expert in medicines and know what they're talking about. But now their voice is kind of drowned out by a whole bunch of people who try this, try that, I do this. And what often happens is that the guys end up double dosing. So simple example with the mites. Now, one guy says, no, use scat on the back of the neck, a drop on the back of the neck. Another guy recommends that you spray the cages and disinfect the environment. Now, those two things by themselves aren't bad. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But now a third person goes and says, you know what, I prefer a water-based remedy. Now, that's my personal remedy. I don't like catching the birds to put it on the back of the neck. It's additional stress. They're already weak because of the mice. So I prefer a water-based one. So now it's in the drinking water. But now if you go and take that advice that I've just given with the water-based and you combine it with the scat, now all of a sudden you layering and you actually double dosing. So now your birds recover from the mites. But now suddenly a week and a half, 2 weeks later, they start dying from effectively organ failure because they've been poisoned by an overdose. So, you need to be careful of these type of things. The other thing is that a lot of the times if people say, no, treat with this particular remedy, and it's the water-based ones in particular, they forget to tell you, well, hang on, you need to do it again in 2 weeks' time. Because if you don't, the cycle then starts again. The eggs have hatched out and then they start growing and reproducing, and before you know it, you've got a mite problem again, and it's not even a month later. So, that repeat treatment is very important. The other thing that happens is that, you put up a photo of a bird, and it might be a great bird, it might not be, but you're getting a whole bunch of people that some of them may actually know what a quality bird looks like, and a lot of them don't know what a quality bird looks like. So what happens is they turn around and they say, yeah, no, great bird. And you take the bird and breed with it. And, yes, it might be a nice bird from a color perspective, but maybe it's totally lacking on the type aspects of the bird. So as a result, you end up wasting your time in the sense that you're breeding birds that aren't of quality for various reasons. And
the sort of less educated individuals that are on those groups might buy those chicks from you, and the pet shops might buy those chicks from you. But you'll find that on those WhatsApp groups, the guys are getting $100, $150 a bird. Now, quite honestly, I wouldn't sell a bird for $100. It's a waste of time. I breed enough for what I need for the next breeding season. I don't do 3-4 rounds like some of the guys do. And as a result, I don't have a oversupply of birds. So when I do sell, I sell primarily to my own club. So I make sure that the best birds stay within the showing community. And then when I do release birds to a general populace of breeders, like on the WhatsApp groups or whatever, those birds will get snapped up quickly, but I promise you I'm not going to sell them for $100, $150. So the point is, you're spending the same amount on seed, whether you're producing a quality bird or a pet shop special or a rubbish quality bird. So why not educate yourself through the right channels and get the higher value for the birds? So you might think, okay, yeah, but it costs me to join part of a club. Yes, it does. 275 Rand for a whole year. Guys, that's not even 27 Rand a month. Really, that's not real money. And secondly, if you're getting 150 minimum now instead of 150 maximum, or you're getting 200 Rand a bird, hello, you don't have to sell many birds to cover the cost of being part of the club. And if you're losing less birds because you're getting the right advice, so you saving 2 or 3 extra birds a year because they're not dying through the wrong information, guess what? You've covered that club's fee 2-3 times. So what do you get for being part of a club? So like I said, you're getting the right advice because you're on a club WhatsApp group with the right individuals. And you'll very quickly see, okay, this person's very good at correct pairings of the birds. This person's very good at the behavioral aspects of the bird. That person's very good at the medicine aspect. And your chairperson of the club will know who the right people are. So if you have a problem and they don't know the answer, so if one of my members come to me and they say, listen, I've got an issue with this, I'll say, you know what, I don't have much experience in that particular aspect, but I know this person had a lot of dealings with that. Talk to them. And that kind of, shall we say, direction is going to really help you as a breeder. The next thing that you get from being part of a club is that you have access to the meetings. So both of the South African clubs, and I know the international clubs as well, a lot of them offer like a Zoom or a Google Meet type scenario, so that even if you're not close by to where the club meets, you can still join the meeting. And in our case, we've got members from all over the world that are part of the Gouldian Finch Collective, and we've got guys from elsewhere in the country. So if you're sitting in Bloemfontein, Cape Town, Durban, it doesn't matter. You can still be part of the club meetings. And then the next benefit is that you get first access to the best possible birds within the club. So we have a meeting now in January, and that is a sales meeting only. So we don't have discussions or topics. What we do is each member will bring the cream of the birds that they are willing to part with that season, and they will offer it to the club members first. It's a silent auction basis, so you put in an offer for that bird, and then the highest offer in the cup then wins that bird, if you like. And that way, every member in the club gets access to the absolute best that the club members have to offer. And then after that, our members start selling the birds to the general sort of Gouldian keeping population, if you like, in South Africa. So you're getting access to the best possible birds by being part of a club. The next thing that it gives you is that it gives you access to shows. Now, our particular club, we do require that you participate in one show a year. And the reason why we do that is it then enables the sort of more experienced members in the club to be able to see what you're breeding, because it's a breeders run show. And we then able, well, two of the shows are breeders run. And then we're able to give you guidance and advice because we're seeing where you're going wrong and we can assist you in that way. Okay, so I would really recommend from that perspective that you look at joining it. We also then offer, so not the virtual side for our out-of-town members. We do a photographic show once a year, which is a left and a right photo of the bird, and it's in a club photo booth that's been specifically designed to minimize shadows and all that kind of thing. And then we also offer a virtual entry aspect for our normal shows. So our Bloodline show and our Champion show, you can enter video entries, and that will be judged separately. And then the top birds from that side is then put against the normal entries, if you like. So it doesn't matter if you're sitting overseas, if you're sitting locally, your birds have the opportunity to participate and see how you compare. You know, one of the biggest things that I find as well is that the guys will look at their birds in isolation and think, yeah, I've got a great bird. And it might be. But until you actually put it next to show quality birds, now you realize, but hang on, my birds are small. But hang on, I thought my heads were well rounded, but they're actually not if I look at the other birds on the show bench. So it's that kind of thing that you only get when you're actually participating and you're getting feedback. Also, being part of the club, obviously, we had the international show towards the end of this year, 2023. And you had to be part of a club for that. So if you want to participate against birds from all over the world and see how your birds match up, you have to be part of a club to do that. And a new thing that was introduced this year, in particular with the World Show, is that we did a ranking. So the top 30% of the participants around the world got put in a ranking, and it's not necessarily the guy that won this year is ranked the number one breeder in the world, isn't the guy that won the show. It was on average across his 5 birds, he had the best birds in the world. And that ranking, I can tell you now, is going to make a massive difference to him as a breeder. Because if I'm looking to buy and I've got 3 or 4 breeders offering me birds or that have birds available, the guy with the ranking or the highest ranking is going to be my first choice, because the chances are I'm going to get the best possible quality from that individual. And believe me, the guys in clubs will pay top dollar for the decent quality birds. Coming back to my point about it makes sense because you're going to earn more for your birds. So please consider it. If you have any questions, you can get a hold of the club on GouldianFinchCollective@gmail.com. Or you can contact me directly through our Facebook or through the WhatsApp. You'll pick up my number from there. And yeah, we'd love to have you as a member. $275 a year is all that it's going to cost you, and that also gives you the association for the provincial and the national body. So if you are sitting in Cape Town, you can also then partake in any associated club in your area. If they have an open show that caters for the Gouldians, and or obviously your provincial shows and all that kind of thing as well. So there's a whole host of benefits, and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks.